Good afternoon, folks, and thanks for joining us. Welcome to the MMA Sucka podcast. My name is Tim Wheaton, joined as always by the one and only Frazer Krohn. How are you doing today, sir?
I'm all good, mate. We're recording a day later than we usually do, which means we're a day further removed from the madness of last weekend, but importantly, we're a day closer to one of the biggest weekends in fight sports of the year, really. If you sort of drill down into it, it's there's so much going on this weekend that I'm looking forward to breaking down.
Absolutely. We got UFC 288, Sterling versus Cejudo for the bantamweight title, upcoming this weekend, and the One Championship, Demetrious versus Adriano Moraes for the flyweight title. Now, but last weekend we had Yadong had a dominant, impressive victory over Ricky Simón, and we also had BKFC. We were talking off air a little bit. BKFC was the story coming out of this weekend. The UFC was not what the combat sports world was talking about.
Yeah, for sure. I think, what did we learn from the UFC? Not an awful lot, in my opinion. We know Song Yadong carries, maybe unprecedented power down at 135, and he showed on Saturday night that he carries that power late on into the fight as well. Fifth round sort of TKO there, and it wasn't just in my opinion, Ricky Simón didn't know where he was, even though he got back to his feet. He didn't know where he was. I think the card needed that. We had a good few sort of submissions. We had the controversial, arguably controversial knockout of Julian Erosa. Was it an early stoppage? I personally think so. We had two heavyweight fights go the distance. Nobody wants to see that. Nobody wants to see that. And then we had the knee bar, which was, it was a good finish. But the girl missed weight. She celebrated on the scales like she was the next biggest thing. I'm not sure about this Alex Siva. I mean, she calls herself Russian Ronda.
It's a great name, but that's about it.
Come on, does she have a future in the UFC? Like I say, she missed weight on her debut. You've got girls on this card, Jamie Lynn Horth. Hayley Cowan missed weight as well, but Jamie Lynn Horth comes in on late notice, makes weight. Marcus McGee comes in, I think it's about a week's notice, makes weight. There's no excuse for missing weight, but especially by 4 pounds. And you could tell when she was having her first fight photo, she didn't look like she was dialing into 135 pounds. She looked a little bit fleshy around the edges, as it were. And but like I say, or like you commented on, BKFC won the weekend, and it's quite clear to see why. To be honest, it was they had a lot of big names on it, and all the fights delivered.
Well, yeah, sometimes we talk about these UFC Apex cards, and just like the people you were mentioning, is because these are not bottom of the barrel, but this looks like an LFA event. Aside from the main event was great, and we talked about how good the main event was last week. But aside from that, this is like an LFA card or something like that, and that's how it feels. Whereas BKFC, despite it being quite kitsch or quite silly or quite circus act, and having mainly retired UFC fighters on it, it had better fights. It had more entertaining. It had cooler storylines coming out. And I'll be honest, I don't really watch a lot of BKFC, but someone on Twitter did say that slap fighting has really helped legitimize BKFC because now the bottom of the barrel is actually much lower than we thought it was.
Yeah, I mean, that's a really valid point. And not something that I've really considered, to be honest. At least BKFC, there has to be a level of skill there.
You actually need to be quite good at BKFC.
You have to be able to box. You have to be able to adapt. Like you say, I'd say, 80%, 75% are guys and girls that have come over from MMA to bare knuckle, and they have to adapt their boxing. You can't use the big gloves. You can't use the MMA. You can't obviously shoot for the takedown. Even in Jose Aldo has transitioned over to boxing now.
Yeah,
it's a difference. He's had to adapt it because he can now block shots with the big gloves. He can get the big gloves up and around his head. With BKFC, you've got to adapt your boxing, like we've seen Mike Perry do, to great effect. Like we saw Chad Mendes. I mean, this card at the weekend, you had Luke Rockhold, former undisputed UFC middleweight champion on it.
Yeah.
You had Eddie Alvarez, former UFC undisputed lightweight champion.
Yeah.
Did Chad Mendes hold the interim featherweight belt, or he competed for the belt at the interim, or he competed for the belt twice against Aldo, once for the interim against Conor? He's constantly in big fights. Even Beck Rawlins, to a degree, she's a former, maybe not BKFC, but she held some sort of bare knuckle championship belt kind of thing. You got Ben Rothwell in there. That's all on just one card, And like you say, the storylines going in. I think Luke Rockhold and Mike Perry were they really match well. Nobody really, believed that these two are ever going to make it in the UFC again after
No.
their last fights, but they've obviously found a niche, and that niche is bare knuckle boxing. Maybe does Rockhold compete again? I don't think so. It's like we had the Paige Van Zandt experiment. I don't think she's stepping in the bare knuckle arena again anytime soon. But it's fun while it lasts, kind of thing.
Well, if someone said you can make a lot of money from posting your feet and toes online, or you can get your teeth rearranged, like, okay, I'll get my socks out. Like, you know what I mean? There's no
Exactly.
question there. Fight sport is brutal, and that's the weird thing about this. It's like BKFC is a brutal thing, and I'm surprised. I'm surprised that there's people who excel at it, and those people are Mike Perry is really good at bare knuckle fighting, apparently.
Well, the thing is, if you look at Mike Perry's UFC career, where did he struggle? He struggled against wrestlers.
Yeah.
That armbar against Cowboy Cerrone. He obviously got head kicked against Jeff Neal, but he doesn't have to worry about the grappling. He doesn't have to worry about head kicks. He just has to worry about being a sort of quote unquote hardest headed guy in the arena. If you just looking down his record now, he lost a split decision to Vicente Luque.
Yeah.
Santiago Ponzinibbio, he lost to Alan Joban. These guys are strikers, but they're not boxers. They're kickboxers. Max Griffin, kickbox. Donald Cerrone, armbar, finish on the floor. Like I say, Jeff Neal with the head kick. Tim Means and Daniel Rodriguez, both, established kickboxers.
Mm-hmm.
And then you go over to his BKFC career, decision against Julian Lane, decision against MVP.
Yeah.
I think that one is the craziest one.
Yeah,
and then Luke Rockhold, it says win via verbal brackets teeth injuries. But then you look at where Rockhold struggled in his UFC career.
Yeah.
Paulo Costa was pretty much a stand-up fight, and he struggled in that one.
Yeah.
Jan Blachowicz, pretty much a stand-up fight, and he struggled in that one.
Yeah.
Michael Bisping got knocked out on the feet. Yoel Romero got knocked out on the feet. David Branch, although he won that fight, he got rocked on the feet. They've obviously found their niche. Luke Rockhold, 38 years old. He's a good-looking fella. I think he's modelled for Calvin Klein or something to that.
Yeah.
He didn't have to do that, but he's a competitor. He's a fighter, and people were saying, "Oh, Rockhold had no chance. Oh, he quit in there." You get in there with someone as mad as Mike Perry.
Come on.
I'm not. I'm not a big fan of BKFC, but
No.
I think literally within the past 5 minutes, my views changed on it when you've compared it and you sort of, that and slap fighting, at least there's skill in BKFC. Slap fighting is just nonsense.
Man, I can't believe we were talking about like BKFC is one of the most embarrassing things that ever happened in the sport. And then slap fighting actually legitimized it. And it's just a ludicrous thing that now BKFC does look more legitimate than a Zuffa owned or a UFC owned product. But let's move forward, because this weekend we're not in the circus. We're not in the freak shows anymore. We are in nothing but gold and glory. Triple C. He's held the flyweight title. He's held the bantamweight title. He was the youngest American Olympic wrestler in history to earn a gold medal. Henry Cejudo is back. It's been 3 years away now. We don't know what kind of shape he's in. It's a weight he's only fought in once, and he's going to be fighting the largest opponent of his career, not just a big. This guy, Aljamain Sterling, is massive for bantamweight, and Henry Cejudo has fought mainly his career at flyweight. Yet I'm still, despite all of this, I can't help but think Henry Cejudo probably gets it done on the feet, the wrestling. Henry Cejudo's the better fighter, but Frazer, help me make sense of this. Aljamain Sterling, Henry Cejudo, the bantamweight title is on the line. UFC 288. Go ahead.
Like you say, 3 years away, what's he going to look like? But it's not like he's had 3 years sat on the couch. I think he's probably had about a year and a half sat on the couch by some of the videos that we've seen and the shape that he was in. Sort of when he was retired, he was enjoying the odd beer or 12, let's say that. But, he's had John Jones in his gym. He's had Jiri Prochazka. He's had Davison Figueiredo. He's been training with DJ, who we'll go on to talk about later in the show.
Yeah.
Zhang Weili. He's been around. Everyone I've just named there is a world champion, arguably still to this day the best in their division. I think Davison Figueiredo at flyweight, we've seen him and Brandon Moreno fight, 5 times now? And I think it's 3-2 or 4-1. I can't remember, or there's a draw in there. Mm-hmm. There's an argument that Figueiredo could come back tomorrow and beat Brandon Moreno. There's that argument. as you said, Aljamain Sterling's huge. He's got a 3-inch reach advantage, 3-inch height advantage, 7-inch reach advantage.
It's huge.
I don't think he uses that well, though. I don't think he
Hmm.
uses it particularly well. With Aljamain Sterling, we've seen him sort of wing shots in and sort of fall into a grappling exchange. You do that with Henry Cejudo. He's quick enough. Let's not forget, like you say, he's a former flyweight. Just 2 fights ago, he was fighting at flyweight. Then he fought Marlon Moraes. Then he fought Dominic Cruz.
Right. Okay.
Let's not pretend here that Henry Cejudo is not the quicker fighter, because he is a lot quicker than Aljamain Sterling, in my opinion. And that maybe not striking wise, but on the feet, he can get out of the way. I think he's a lot smarter a fighter than Aljamain Sterling. I was listening to Veronica Macedo and Dan Hardy break it down, and they were talking about the fact that, Aljamain Sterling's got a 24% takedown accuracy,
Mm.
which is really low, especially when you consider that he landed 5 of 8 takedowns against a TJ Dillashaw that was quote unquote injured.
Mm.
So that's boosted his takedown accuracy up. Petr Yan in the second fight, 2 of 22. Petr Yan in the first fight, 1 of 17.
But do you think it's 2 of 22? So they must not include if you do a takedown failure and then do a back take. That's not a takedown, even though he took the back, right? Because those
For
stats,
sure.
2 of 22, he was on the back the whole time in that fight, right?
Exactly, and you look at that. To your point, you talk about the Corey Sandhagen fight. He finished that by rear naked choking in just over a minute and a half, but isn't accredited with the takedown. Well,
Right.
How did he get on his back?
There you go. Okay, yeah.
From a scramble and took the back. So, I completely agree with you. But he struggled to take Pedro Munoz down, 0 out of 7 attempts. Jimmy Rivera, 0 out of 7 attempts. Cody Stamen, he only scored 2 out of 9 attempts. But off the takedown attempt, the failed takedown attempt, he obviously got that Sulov stretch. Like we said against Corey Sandhagen, off a failed takedown offense, he managed to take the back when Corey Sandhagen was scrambling back to his feet. Even the takedowns against Petr Yan in the second fight, I'm kind of slightly disregarding the TJ Dillashaw fight ever so slightly. Yes, it was his most recent fight, but I'm not sure how much we can take away from the Dillashaw injury. Was he taken down easier than he probably would have? Yes, but you can look back. It was only a year ago since he fought Petr Yan for the second time. He didn't. Like I say, he landed 2 of 22 takedowns, but he got like you said, he got the ground. He got to the fight to where he wanted it to be a lot more often than maybe that statistic would show, because he was falling into takedowns. He was scrambling. He was maybe defending a takedown and getting a better position. But I just don't think that he can do that against Henry Cejudo. I think Henry Cejudo is just too smart. I think he's got such a strong wrestling base that he's going to be, even in the scrambles, I think he's going to be a lot better than Aljo in the scrambles. But with that being said, that second fight against Petr Yan, the Corey Sandhagen fight, even the TJ Dillashaw fight, injury, disregarded, he's legitimately the best of the best at the moment, Aljamain Sterling. Does he beat a Marab? Well, we'll never know because they'll never fight. But he sets a relentless pace. But I just don't think, with the ease that Petr Yan was taking him down in that first fight, I think if he turns up like he did against Petr Yan in that first fight, Cejudo wipes the floor with him. Mm-hmm. If he turns up in the shape and the mindset and the confidence that he did in the TJ Dillashaw fight, I think it could be a much closer fight. I wouldn't be surprised to see Aljamain Sterling get his hand raised. But I think that all depends, I might give my pick on Friday after we see him on the scales. How's Cejudo looking on the scales? How's Aljo looking on the scales? Fight week. I imagine we'll get a press conference this week. I haven't seen anything, but I'd be surprised if we didn't. It's going to be a good competitive fight, but I do think, similar to the co-main event, I think one man is better than the other man wherever it goes. It's just whether, there's certain factors that could play into that.
Yeah, there's a ton of X factors coming in, because I agree with you that on paper, Henry Cejudo should have every advantage. I think his karate boxing is crisper on the feet. I think he's outstruck really well, really good fighters. Henry Cejudo, by the end of his UFC career, was outstriking Dominic Cruz. Like he was legitimately a great fighter on the feet. His wrestling is paramount. Like he was one of the best wrestlers in U.S. Olympic team history. I have to think that he is the better fighter in almost every area. But there's a few X factors, like you said, the age, the time away, the ring rust, and the size. And those are things that are going to be really hard to account for. Aljamain Sterling is going to be a really tough fight for him. And I think he's going, if you were doing a comeback fight for Henry Cejudo, like Petr Yan had to be the tougher fight. I don't know. No, sorry. Maybe Petr Yan was the easier fight. Or Corey Sandhagen was the easier fight. Like, arguably, Aljamain Sterling is the toughest fight for his comeback. Not just because he's cleaned out the division, but just style-wise, he's a really good counter wrestler and things like that. But I do agree with you. In every area, I am picking Henry Cejudo. But I do recognize that there are X factors that we just may not know. We're just going by what the data we have. What did they look like in their most recent fights, even if it was 3 years ago? But yeah, there's a ton that we just don't know in this fight, right?
Yeah, for sure. And like you say, you're picking Cejudo. I'm leaning towards Cejudo this week. But we're assuming that's the Henry Cejudo that left off against Dominic Cruz.
Yeah.
It might not be.
Yeah.
3 years away is a long time and it, like you say, he kind of, he stepped away from the division because there weren't any more contenders. I don't believe that to be true. There was plenty of contenders, there was plenty of contenders that could have fought for the belt. But I looked down his wins since, obviously he had the first MMA loss to DJ, then he lost to Joey Benavidez. Then he took a little bit of time out, came back with that karate style.
Mm-hmm.
Knocked out Wilson Hayes. Good win, but Wilson Hayes after that fight didn't go on to do anything really. He lost to Henry Cejudo. He then lost to John Moraga. He had a loss in there against Pantoja, and then he was cut from the UFC. Yeah. Sergio Pettis is a win that's aged pretty well, on paper. But then you look at, since Sergio Pettis lost to Henry Cejudo, he got a split decision win over Joey Benavidez, lost to Yusuf Formiga, lost to Rob Font, then picked up another win. He was maybe out of form. The DJ win, there's no denying that DJ win's phenomenal.
Yes. Yeah.
But it was a split decision. So it wasn't like Henry Cejudo dominated that win.
No.
You then look at TJ Dillashaw, who boiled himself down to 125, was PED'd out of his head, and he caught a fighter whose brain was drained of liquid, as it were.
Yes.
Then he stepped up in weight to face Marlon Moraes, a win that at the time was a really good win. Now it looks like he just carried out the blueprint of what Corey Sandhagen, Rob Font, Merab, Song Yadong, Shaman Moraes, and Brendan Loughnane have all managed to do. They've all beaten him more decisively than Henry Cejudo, in my opinion. All of those guys beat him more decisively than Henry Cejudo beat him. And then you look at Dominic Cruz, who took the fight on relatively late notice. Let's not forget that Cejudo was meant to be facing Jose Aldo, takes on Dominic Cruz instead. A Dominic Cruz that hadn't competed. He was coming off a loss. Yes, it was to Cody Garbrandt back in 2016, but then they faced each other in 20. He'd had 3.5 years out, and he still cut Henry Cejudo. It's still a fairly competitive fight for as long as it lasted. Henry Cejudo, there's no denying his win streak, but when you look at the wins and break them down individually, are they quite as the level of competition that he's fought in, a boiled down TJ Dillashaw, Marlon Moraes, who was on his way out of his peak, as it were, Dominic Cruz, who was returning. I don't believe that sort of level of competition is as good as Aljamain Sterling. You got Cody Stamen, Jimmy Rivera, Pedro Munoz, Sandhagen in a minute and a half.
Yeah.
Petr Yan twice. Then he's been prepared for the best version of TJ Dillashaw. Realistically, that he could fit. He didn't know that TJ was coming in there with a shoulder injury. Aljamain Sterling, I think, has got the better resume as far as high level. But again, like you said, like we kind of agreeing on here, Henry's got the better striking. He's probably more intelligent. He hasn't got the MMA experience. He hasn't got the size. He hasn't got the schedule.
Yeah,
but he's got the better wrestling. Where does Aljamain Sterling always look to get the fight to the ground? I was watching, I think it's a countdown show. Aljamain Sterling almost admitted, look, when he gets me down, is he going to be able to hold me down? I'm going to cut him up with elbow. So he's already accepting that he's going to be taken down, which is slightly worrying.
Mm-hmm.
If I'm Henry, I'm throwing knees up the middle, I'm throwing kicks up the middle all night long, because Aljo, he looks to take his opponents down very square on.
Yeah.
Ask Marlon Moraes, that big knee knocked Aljamain Sterling clean out. And I know that he was going for a high kick, but it's because Aljo was there to be kneed, as it were. So I'm fascinated by this fight. I'm there's so many aspects around the fight itself, not just the fight itself. It's how does Henry look? How would this fight have gone if Henry had taken this fight after the Dominic Cruz fight? How much is the weight cut for Henry going to be a factor? How much is the weight cut for Aljo going to be a factor? Because he's a huge guy, like you alluded to.
Hmm.
Aljo's never been good, like a good, solid, world class striker, but he's got the 7 inch and 3 inch, 7 inch reach and 3 inch height. He needs to use that. He needs to keep it long. Realistically, he could, if he wanted to, keep the kicks up the middle, keep the deep kicks to the body, side kicks.
Hmm.
Batter Henry's legs as we saw against Marlon Moraes, who's kind of exposed to the leg kick. Keep him on the end of the jab. He can keep Henry Cejudo at distance, but whether he knows how to, that's a whole other question.
And I agree with you. Henry Cejudo's record is really good. It's solid. Henry Cejudo's record with a bit of context. It's not quite the same, right? Dominic Cruz, he beat him in like 2018, 2019, something like that. Like,
They beat him in 2020, but that was after Cruz hadn't competed since the last day of 2016.
Yeah, and
So,
you could even argue Dominic Cruz's prime was 2013, and we're talking about 2020. Demetrious Johnson was a good win, but I remember really well of like the last 30 seconds decided that fight. And if you saw significant strikes as something else, then you would have easily given that to Demetrious Johnson. Like that was that was a razor close fight. So yeah, but it still doesn't. It's not enough to quite shake my picks. And I like Aljo. I think we both like Aljamain Sterling.
yeah, for sure.
Right, he's super talented. Go ahead.
No. I'm just no. I agree with you.
Yeah.
I really like Aljo. I think I hope he gets some love this weekend in the Prudential Center.
Yeah. They did square off earlier, and it looks like 3 inches can't be right because Aljamain Sterling looked like half a head bigger than Henry Cejudo. Like Henry Cejudo is a small guy, right?
Yeah, for sure. And I think Henry Cejudo's everything about him is dialed up a little bit. And it's mainly through his coach Eric Alba, whatever his name is, with the glasses. I cannot. That guy
he knows
too much.
He's knows
too much, but he knows what he's doing.
He knows.
He knows he knows how to play the game. He knows how to big up Henry Cejudo like nobody else.
Yep.
Best combat sports athlete in the world. Well, there's that argument, but he holds two. Does that mean that Joey Benavidez is secretly the best combat sport because he holds the win over Henry? Let's not forget that. It's going to be an entertaining fight and an entertaining build up for the rest of this week. But it's Henry Cejudo on paper should win this, but fights aren't fought on paper. They're fought in the middle of the octagon, and Aljamain Sterling has been in the middle of the octagon time after time, year after year. So if we look at when Henry's last fight was 2020. Since then, Aljo's had 2 fights with Petty and a fight with TJ Dillashaw and potentially a fight with Corey Sandhagen. His strength of schedule is insane. The comparison between the two.
And I'll add to the on paper again because I think there's a weird statistic from quite a while ago that Henry Cejudo's opponents added together make him one of the most impressive athletes because he beat 3 guys in TJ Dillashaw, Dominic Cruz, and Demetrious Johnson. And if you add those 3 together, you get more title victories in UFC history than anyone else. So he's somehow beaten those 3 guys and now has beaten more UFC title defenses than anyone else in history just by beating those 3 guys. So strength, it's like on paper, this guy's resume is just insane. But again, with context, it's just a little bit different. However, we're both picking him. Anyway, let's move forward to the welterweight showdown this weekend. You did say we're leaning one guy. I know. I get it. Let's really get into it. Bilal Muhammad versus Gilbert Burns. This was not quite last minute, but I believe Gilbert Burns did fight quite recently. Gilbert Burns certainly looks like the better fighter, but somehow Bilal Muhammad, he's never really impressed us, has he? And I feel bad in saying that. I feel like he's a top 5 fighter in his weight class. He's never really impressed us. What's your thoughts on this matchup?
Whether he's not impressed us or he just hasn't impressed, 22 wins, 16 decisions, 5 finishes, but in the UFC, I think he's got 3 finishes. Is that enough to be? This is why he's not. Strength of schedule, he should be getting a title shot. He should be next in line for Leon Edwards. No questions asked.
Okay.
He's got the last time out, the TK over Sean Brady, win over Vicente Luque. the win over Stephen Thompson, the win over Damian Maia, no contest against Leon, where yes, he was losing that fight, but who knows how that one would have gone.
Sure.
I mean, Damian Maia, Stephen Thompson, both competed for the title. Vicente Luque has been on the cusp for a title. You know, he's a main event fighter. He's fighting in another main event coming up against RDA.
Mm-hmm.
Sean Brady was undefeated at the time, the kind of avoided man at 170. Bilal Muhammad doesn't back down from any of these fights. It's because of his fight style. But, you know, he fights in a way to win. Damian Maia, you don't go to the ground with Damian Maia. He didn't. He kept on the feet and he dominated him.
Mm.
Stephen Thompson, you don't stand with Stephen Thompson. He didn't. He took him to the ground and dominated him. Vicente Luque, you have to get your head on his chest and you know, outwork Vicente Luque. He did that. No one knew how to beat Sean Brady, and Bilal Muhammad found a way without having to fall back on his wrestling. But it's just the way, you know, decision after decision after decision after decision. It's probably why Bilal Muhammad isn't getting a title shot. It's the same as Leon Edwards. Why he didn't get a title shot until he did. And, you know, I think with Bilal, for this one, I'm fascinated by it. You know, I believe that he was the one that requested 5 rounds. So he obviously sees something in Gilbert Burns, whether it's because Gilbert Burns obviously only competed 3-4 weeks ago at UFC 287 in the back-to-back pay-per-view co-main events for Gilbert Burns.
Mm-hmm.
That needs to be sort of championed anyway. But whether Bilal believes that he only competed a month ago, this fight was only signed 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
I'm not. He must see a weakness in Gilbert Burns's cardio.
But
I don't personally.
We're struggling to make an argument for Bilal of he must see something because we don't.
I'm just confused as to why he would request it to be over 5 rounds. We don't get. I think Nate and Leon were the first 5-round co-main event non-title fight in UFC history.
Yeah.
However many years ago, we don't get a lot of 5-round co-main events that don't have a title attached. This one's on late notice, so that's you'd automatically assume that the guys want 3 rounds.
Mm-hmm.
Bilal's been going through, he's been going through Ramadan, so he's been fasting for multiple hours a day up until I think 2 weeks ago, 2.5 weeks ago, maybe.
Yep.
How hard has he been able to train? Khabib always said that he'll never fight during Ramadan because you can't train as when you've got no fuel in your body. Essentially, you can't train it as hard as you normally would.
Yeah.
Another factor to consider is that Bilal won't have Khabib in his corner.
Yeah.
That's arguably in my opinion, that was a big factor as to why he won that fight against Sean Brady. He had Khabib in his corner, almost talking him through the fight. We've always said that Khabib is almost like he's playing, the UFC 4 video game. He's literally sat there telling his fighter, do this, do that, do this, do that. You won't have that voice in his ear this week and on fight night. And throwing it over to Gilbert Burns, I just, like we said in the main event, I just think that he's probably better everywhere than Bilal Muhammad. And I think Bilal Muhammad is, I mean, like we said, top 5 welterweight. Phenomenal competitor.
Good.
Going to be the bigger guy in there.
Yeah.
Does he make this one kind of boring and just hold Gilbert Burns? I think he's good. Like I say, I think he's going to be the bigger guy in there. Gilbert might. I don't think he'll struggle to make weight, but it's going to be tougher than when he made weight against Jorge Masvidal because obviously I imagine he blew up a little bit after that Masvidal fight.
Yeah.
That was only the 8th of April, so it's we're talking less than a month. I don't quite see how Bilal wins this unless he makes it really boring and holds Gilbert up against the fence. But Gilbert stood with Jorge Masvidal. That win over Neil Magny, it's the big overhand right to the takedown to the submission. Again, I'm fascinated by this fight because I just don't know how it's going to go.
Yeah, it's a weird one because Gilbert Burns on paper should absolutely be the favorite in every way. And like you said, what is Bilal seeing asking for 5 rounds? Because the only time that these two have fought 5 rounds between either of them is when Gilbert Burns beat the hell out of Tyron Woodley for 5 rounds. That's the only time either of them have ever been in a 5-round fight. Bilal Muhammad never has gone to the championship rounds. So I think
he's gone to the championship rounds once against Vicente Luque, but even then,
he was
cruising from round 3. He just didn't need to get knocked out.
Yeah, so this is a
That easy.
weird, yeah, it's a weird one. But in every way, I'm picking Gilbert Burns. Like whether this stays on the feet, whether this goes to the ground, I just think Gilbert Burns has better tools in every department. This is a Gilbert Burns win, right?
I mean, I completely agree. I'm also picking Gilbert Burns, but I can also see myself sat here with you next week saying
What a game
apologies
plan.
to Bilal Muhammad. His
Yeah,
striking was far better than we. He strikes like a big, he's wide across the chest, Bilal.
yeah,
He's got a sort of strange-ish body type, and I can see us sitting here, like I say, and apologizing to Bilal Muhammad, saying, "Look, we didn't respect his ability on the feet." But
I know, I know.
aside from that Sean Brady win, he hasn't really shown us anything on the feet, and hasn't had to because he's dominated with the wrestling. But you can't be taking Gilbert Burns down. There's too much of a risk there, in my opinion.
Yeah,
So maybe we'll see a little bit more standing from Bilal Muhammad, which potentially, we Gilbert Burns has only lost one in his for as long as I can remember at welterweight since his title loss to Kamaru Usman against Khamzat Chimaev, where he took some licks off essentially a middleweight fighting at 170.
hmm
I don't think there's a weakness in he wasn't taken down, and when he was taken down against Chimaev, he did well on the floor as we'd expect. He's very very well rounded, but can Bilal find a way around that well rounded game of Gilbert Burns? And you know, like I say, does he think that he'll maybe lose the first two rounds and Gilbert will gas and he'll take over in the championship rounds, which is why he requested five?
could be.
I'm not sure, but I'm excited to see. I really want to see a fourth or a fifth round, which is ironic because we always say, we love knockouts, we love finishes, we love submissions. I kind of want to see a fourth and fifth round to see the sort of psychology of Bilal. Does he really put the foot down in the third, fourth, and fifth? Who knows?
Yeah, it's going to be a fun one at UFC 288. We also have Yan Xiaonan who's going to be fighting the former champion Jessica Andrade. This is a fun fight. I like this fight so much because I do like Yan Xiaonan. On the feet, she's very good. Good, crisp hand skills. On the ground, she's very questionable. But Jessica Andrade, everywhere she goes, a banger. She is always game to fight. Like she goes through careers highs, career lows. It doesn't matter. She always brings it, right? What do you think of this matchup? It's a good one.
Yeah, I mean, third appearance of the year already for Jessica Andrade. She obviously beat Lauren Murphy in Brazil on the first pay per view of the year.
Slaughtered her.
She then
It's bad.
and then she faced Erin Blanfield last time out and was beaten on. She was winning the fight on the feet and then she was beaten on the ground. Now Yang Xiaonan, like you kind of alluded to there, I don't see Yang Xiaonan taking this one to the ground. I think it's going to be a kickboxing fight.
Yeah.
What does worry me slightly is this down at 115? What weight class is Jessica Andrade fighting in? Because she fought
She fights all over.
115,
Yeah.
125, 125, 115, and that's all within a year.
Yeah.
Should she be going up and coming down and going up and coming down? What's that doing to her body? We know that she's fought up as high as 135. In my opinion, she's a 125-pound fighter, but obviously she felt the strength of Erin Blanfield last time out and thinks, I need to be able to get that weight back off.
Mm-hmm.
Is Jessica Andrade, 24-10 now in her career? Is she looking to make another run at the belt? I think if she is, she's got to stay at 115 because I think there's the sort of easier path to the title at 115.
Yes.
With that being said, why is she taking all these fights? She's Rose Namajunas, Caitlin Chikagian, Valentina Shevchenko, Calvillo, Lemos, Murphy. Then she loses to Blanchfield. She didn't need to take that Blanchfield fight on late notice. From what I understand, it was Andrade versus someone else in that main event. Oh no, sorry, it was Talia Santos versus Erin Blanchfield in the main event of that one, and then Jessica Andrade filled in on late notice. Well, she didn't need to fill in on late notice against a lower ranked opponent. She did, and she lost, and now she takes a step back. She takes a step back to a lower division. But the fight itself, like you alluded to, I'm hella excited for this fight.
Yeah, it's going to be a fun one. Jessica Andrade is one of the coolest fighters in women's MMA history. She actually is in the conversation, not to be, but she could be considered for a Hall of Fame spot down the line. She's in that conversation to be considered at this point. She's always brought it multiple times, held the titles, fought for it she's fought for the title a bunch of times. She's just really cool stuff. But yeah, I think her power carries over. I think she gets the win in this one. What do you think? What's your final pick on this one?
Yeah, I think I'm gonna pick Andrade. I think she's got the better wrestling if she has to take it
Yeah.
down. She has the better wrestling against Yang Xiaonan. With that being said, Yang Xiaonan survived on the floor against Mackenzie Dern,
Yeah.
but she wasn't hanging out with Mackenzie Dern on the ground for too long because she's not stupid. But I think if I'm Dana White, I'm spiking Jessica Andrade's drinks. I'm trying to get Yang Xiaonan that win so I can put Wei Li Zhang versus Yang Xiaonan in China later on this year.
All right, Frazer Krohn, UFC 288. What else do you see on this card that you like that you want to break down?
I can't really, the main
Yeah.
card is pretty solid. Movsar Evelev stepping in on late notice against Bryce Mitchell, I think makes for a better fight than the original Jonathan Pierce fight. I
Yeah.
think that's a tough fight for Bryce Mitchell. But Bryce Mitchell, I thought Benson Barboza was a tough fight. He's coming back. He's coming off his first loss to Ilia Topuria last time out.
Yep.
Yeah, I'll watch it. I'll watch the hell out of it because I think Bryce Mitchell is an exciting fighter. He takes just shots on the face to try and get the fight to the floor. I
Hmm.
think Movsar Evelev is elite. In my opinion, he needs a finish in this one if he's gonna. He's never finished a fight in the UFC. Despite I think he's got about 6 wins in the UFC now. So yeah, he's 6-0 in the UFC and he's yet to finish a fight. I think that he's he needs that. He needs a win. Ron Gracie returning to a main
Interesting.
card is
He's
it's
fun.
interesting.
It's just fun. Yeah. Yeah.
It's fun. Like you say, it's
Mhm.
fun.
It's fun.
Yeah, yeah. He's returning to the UFC after 3 years away, 4 years away. Didn't look great in his last one against Cub Swanson. Oh no, 4 years away,
4 years.
three
Yeah.
and a half years away
Yeah.
against Charles Jourdain, who's been really active. He's dropped his last two, but to Shane Burgos and Nathaniel Wood,
Fair.
don't think that's anything to be sort of too down about. These are two elite guys. Drew Dober and Matt Favola.
Yep. That's a good one.
Watch it, get a drink beforehand, and don't get a drink. Don't just think, this one, I've got a best bets piece coming out. This one isn't going the distance.
Yeah.
And I hold my hands up if it does, but I'd be very, very surprised. And you've got one of my favorite women's fighters, Marina Rodriguez. I think she's not really respected. She's
No.
16-2. She's got a loss to Carla Esparza and a loss to Amanda Lemos, and they've stuck her right down on the prelims.
And it's a tough fight for her. Verna Jandiroba is serious.
Without a doubt. But if you look at her record, she's she's due a loss. She loses, she wins a couple, she loses one. She wins a couple, she loses one. She won one, she lost. She won last time out, so she's due a loss. That's just how her career is going. Win, loss, win, loss, win, loss, win, loss. It's one of those. But yeah, I mean, like you say, it's a tough fight for her. But you're giving her a tough fight in the fact that she's facing Jandiroba, but then you're sticking her right down on the prelims.
I know.
But you've got, most importantly,
Go ahead.
the one that we can't ignore, Parker Porter versus Braxton Smith.
Cut this division. Enough of this division. There's only
Unless these guys are the top 8 or 10 in the division, I don't want to see heavyweight fights. We had to sit through Jake Collier going 15 minutes this weekend. Come on, come on.
Man, it's so funny. Just like, and we didn't even cover the Francis Ngannou news, but like, if he's not signing with an MMA organization, that's a good thing in all honesty, because who the heck in MMA outside of the UFC heavyweight division do you guys want to see him fight? And like, so he said no to one championship, no to BKFC, no to Glory Kickboxing, and basically what Ariel said is like he's got a verbal agreement somewhere else, and he's just kind of meeting with these people, taking their offers, but not seriously taking their offers. And people are taking that as like something very serious. But like, he didn't sign with one championship. Who's the hell's like, who's the heavyweight division even in any of these divisions? In the UFC, there's like 4 good heavyweights. Outside of the UFC, there's like 1 good heavyweight, and his name's Francis Ngannou. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's a shame. Just touching on that.
Yeah.
There are now good, entertaining fights for Francis Ngannou. John Jones.
Yeah.
Let's not forget
I
he's
know.
1-1 with Stipe Miocic. Like
Yeah.
he's not dominated Stipe Miocic twice, 3 times. They're 1-1. And Stipe dominated him over 25 minutes and got caught in that second fight.
Yeah.
Sergey Pavlovich versus Francis Ngannou would be mental.
Banger.
Let's just book that for one 5 round fight. No one needs to worry about stamina, keeping their conditioning. Just one 5 round fight.
Yeah.
Sorry, one round,
One round.
5 minutes.
That's more than
Tom
enough.
Aspinall. Tom Aspinall. He's
Yeah.
let's be honest, it's not official. He's headlining against Marcin Tybura in July. Heard it here first. Well, you didn't even hear it here first. You heard it here probably a lot later than you've already heard it. It's not official, but he's headlining against Marcin Tybura. So when he gets back on track, that's a fight to make.
Yeah.
You've got fights at heavyweight for Francis Ngannou in the UFC, but they're just I think between him and Dana, they're just too stubborn to sign that sort of that contract.
Well, yeah, and I get why the UFC isn't saying like his demands were outlandish. I get that. I totally get that. But even Francis said like I knew I wasn't going to get every demand, but I thought maybe I get two of them. 2 out of 5
Well,
is
I
more
mean,
than enough here, right?
it's like with everything, when you're sort of haggling for anything, you don't go in. Okay, I want to buy this thing for £100. Well, I'm going to go in at 70.
Yeah,
I don't want to go any higher than 100, so they'll bump me up. They'll bump me up. And with Francis, he makes 5 demands. He's only thinking, okay, I'll get two of these.
yeah,
They said no to any of them. Okay, maybe just give me this one then. No, well, okay, I'm not going to sign. It's kind of that kind of thing. It's kind of business 101 that you don't go in with exactly what you're offering because Dana's going to try. It's like with any bit, Dana's not going to want to sort of shed more money. He's going to try giving fighters the lowest possible deal.
yeah,
And then there's a negotiation period between the two. Francis wants, for example, $100 a fight. Dana says, no, I'll give you 50.
right.
Francis says, okay, no, I'm not taking anything lower than 85.
Mm.
Dana then comes up to 70. It's that negotiation period between the two. And like you said, there was certain demands, fighter pay as a whole will increase, but I'm not sure if Francis was the guy to do that. I'm not quite sure because clearly, he's left the UFC now. People are still regarding John Jones as the UFC champion. When Khabib left, there was a long time before people were saying, "Look, this guy is the legitimate lightweight champion." What's next for Francis Ngannou is a whole other discussion, but we know that it's not going to be one championship, unfortunately.
Yeah, like yeah, the Glory matchmaker said like yeah he looked at the offer. But even Glory said I'm not sure if he actually took this seriously, but like he accepted the offer, but I'm not sure if he ever intended to sign with us. And I think it was the same thing with one championship for him and BKFC with him. Like he's not going to fight in BKFC. I would be disappointed if so let's say there's a PFL Bellator merger and then he joins that and fights Ryan Bader. I can't help but think that's a disappointment because I do want to see him, really make some money in heavyweight boxing. Am I wrong here? Am I stupid?
I want to see him fight someone good, and
Sure.
Ryan Bader is not good. Simply put, I'll be. It's as simple as that for me. I want to see him fight a John Jones, a Sergey Pavlovich.
I know.
Anyone in Arjun Buller in one championship. Even anyone. Imagine a mixed rules fight between him and Rico.
I know. I
I don't want to see him, and then you're giving me Ryan Bader. No, I'm all right, thank you, but I'm fine for a Ryan Bader versus Francis Ngannou fight.
But
When you've got Ryan Bader, who was defeated by John Jones 40 years ago, and now John Jones is still at the top of the division, and Ryan Bader's still at the top of Bellator, I think that kind of tells you everything you need to know.
yeah, I know. Yeah, it just doesn't get me excited to see like the PFL Bellator merger and then sign Francis Ngannou. That just doesn't quite excite me. But whatever. If the man gets paid, good for him. Let's move forward to the big. Should we move to one championship now?
Without a doubt, I'm excited for this one.
Absolutely, one championship making its debut stateside this weekend, headlined with an all-time great in a trilogy matchup, Demetrious Johnson versus Adriano Moraes. They've traded flying knee knockouts before this one. The flyweight world title will be on the line, which in one championship is 135, by the way. What do you make of Mighty Mouse? What do you think of Adriano Moraes? It's a great fight, no matter how you slice it.
For sure, and I think that second fight is really what is going to determine this third fight. The first fight, the flying knee, you can't say, oh, DJ wasn't used to the one championship rule set. It wasn't his debut in one championship. I think he'd had three fights maybe beforehand.
Yeah.
The flying knee knocked him out. And he didn't complain about it. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that DJ sort of, complained about it at all. He didn't. But then to come back and do almost the exact same thing to your opponent, it's just like, okay, you caught me. I'm now just going to show you that I can do the exact same thing, and I will do the exact same thing. I think DJ wins this one. I think it's going to be pretty decisive. I just think he's better wherever the fight goes, and I think that second fight really showed it with just his. I want to say arrogance, but it's not arrogance in a bad way. It's arrogance to say, look how good I am. You knocked
Yeah.
me out with a flying knee. I'm just going to come back. I'm just going to knock you out with a flying knee. I don't care.
Absolutely 100% on that one. I mean, Adriano Moraes is coming in this with a massive size advantage. Even in the second fight, he was doing well on the feet just with how long and powerful he is. He's a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu whiz, tons and tons of experience. Like if I remember correctly, he was on like the one championship debut event or something like that. Like he's been in one forever at this point. So tons of experience. Demetrious Johnson, like what can't you say about him? He's one of the all-time greats. He's fought the best of the best generation over generation. He fought in the WEC. He was, he was in the initial tournament fighting Ian McCall for the flyweight title, stuff like this. He's fought in everyone. He is reaching the end of his career. But I'm gonna pick Demetrious Johnson all day here, right?
Especially because it's in the US. I think if they're looking at going into the US again, which I'd be surprised if they don't. It depend. Obviously, it all depends on how this one goes. You got 7 MMA bouts, 2 grappling bouts, and 2 Muay Thai
Yeah.
bouts. But this is the first time that one have been in the US. I don't know what it's going to be like as far as being attended is concerned, because you have got the UFC pay-per-view on the same weekend.
It's
And now
apparently
I think
it has sold out apparently.
interesting. Yeah, see, I didn't know that. Yeah,
Yeah. It's a smaller venue though. It's like
yeah,
the same one when a lot of European companies go to the US. It's this venue because I think it's only like 6,000 people or something like that. But it's sold out. It doesn't matter. It's sold out.
exactly. And you've got other guys on. Just I don't profess to know an awful lot about the one championship roster top to bottom,
Mm.
but you've got plenty. Rod Tang, Stan Fairtex, Soldic. I'm regarding this as
Sold.
Soldic's debut.
Come on.
It's not, but it is. Sage Northcutt, Rainer Derrida in a grappling match. Our friend Reese McLaren. You've
Yep.
got from top to. Is this is Friday? This Friday?
Should be Friday night. Yeah.
Yeah, so it'll be Friday. But for us, I'll probably watch it Saturday. But this is a really good card.
Yeah.
As far as I think top to bottom talent's concerned, is better than the UFC. So if you can only watch one, watch this one. But I also think the fact that they've done it on separate nights is a extremely clever thing to do. But yeah,
Yeah.
if they want to, if one championship want to return to the US, they're going to hope that Johnson doesn't take too much damage in this one, because if they return to the UFC this year, which I don't think will be on the cards, I think it might be a 1 a year thing like the UFC in the UK,
Yeah.
although they tend to do it twice a year these days. But they want DJ's that poster boy. He's that poster boy for America. Someone coming over from the UFC, still at the top end of his game, coming over to one championship, and they want him to be like I say, the poster boy.
Yeah.
And I think that he could do that if he gets a win over Morales, which I'm leaning towards, but not with. I'm not putting house money on it.
And yeah, I agree with you on the fight itself. Yeah, Demetrious Johnson, he's just an expert at the stuff that's hard to measure, like his timing, his intelligence, stuff like that. He just has it better than other people. On one championship in the U.S., yeah, I think they're going to come back a lot. Like, there's a lot of things where like Bellator makes more money just on ticket sales than one championship, even the one we kind of talk about a lot more, because like ticket sales are really profitable in the US. And I think that's why they're probably going to return quite a bit. Being sold out on your first show is fantastic. Hopefully they can keep making a splash in the US because you just want more competition. But let's run down the rest of the card. Rodtang Jimmongnong versus Edgar Tabarez. It's not good. This isn't a good fight. Like, it's one of their long reigning champions, and they found a regional Muay Thai fighter, and they definitely scouted him because there was highlights the other day of he likes to strike with his hands down and his head up. You guys knew exactly what you were doing. This is stupid.
You guys have seen Rod Tang fight before, right?
Yeah.
You guys better have some medical stuff on high alert for the co-main event. Yeah, this is the co-main event. Yeah,
Yeah.
you guys are going to want some medical stuff.
I wouldn't be surprised if the Colorado Athletic Commission says says no to this one. But so moving down the card, Mikey Musumeci is going to be defending his flyweight submission grappling world title against a very legitimate grappler, and I'm willing to say that because a lot of one's grappling has just been BJJ versus Sambo in a BJJ match. This is actually very good. His opponent is going to be Ozmaha Almari, who's a multi-time IBJJF world champion in no-gi, world champion. He's a North American champion, America's champion. Like, it's a very legitimate matchup, so that's going to be a good one. Any thoughts on that before we move forward on it?
I just think I don't profess to know an awful lot about either guy, to be honest. But I think that's what this kind of card needs. You're kicking off with a couple of MMA fights. Then you've got a Muay Thai and a grappling match in there. Then you've got a few more MMA fights. Then you've got a grappling match and a Muay Thai fight. And then you've got the sort of headlining MMA. But I think it's the way they've structured it. If they go off what Tapology have got, which we're assuming that they do, I think it's a really clever way of doing it. You're kind of breaking it up. And, if for whatever reason you'd be daft to not want to see this fight or any of these fights. But it kind of breaks it up well, if you're not so interested in a submission and, if you've got no interest, you just want to see two people beat the shit out of each other, you go to the bar in the submission fight, then you come back in, but you don't want to miss it.
Absolutely. I agree with you. They got some big names on it. Stamp Fairtex, Roberto Soldier, Sebastian Catistam, the former champion, Sage Northcutt, Ong Lasong is back. Rainier DeRitter is going to be grappling. Jackie Bunton, Deandra Martin. And of course, our best friend, Reese McLaren. There's lots here. Any other matchups here that you really wanted to break down?
That's just, the return of Sage Northcutt. Yeah. Houston Alexander smashed the guy. Literally smashed the guy's head to face.
His head is crooked. Like, you could see it in the Ariel Helwani interview. His head looks like it's a different shape than it was.
And that's just, I don't know what one championship's sort of PED usage policy is, but let's just keep a close eye on Sage Northcutt.
He is fighting
before we go anywhere,
and he is fighting some guy. Every once in a while we'll bring up the some guy treatment. He is legitimately fighting just some guy. So if he can't win this one, but it does speak a lot of, like, maybe Sage Northcutt is that MMA fighter that we didn't think he was, because we always talk about these tough guys like Tank Abbott's and Ken Shamrock's, these guys who were tough as nails. Sage Northcutt broke his face, fractured multiple places, and he still came back to fight. That's an MMA fighter mindset, because it's stupid. If I did a career where my face broke in multiple spots, I'd be retired by now.
I understand. Cyborg never fought after MVP broke his face, and Cyborg was known as one of them guys.
Yes, tough.
And he didn't come back. Sage Northcutt is clearly about that life. And let's be honest, look at the guy. He does not have to fight in a ring, in an octagon. He is a good-looking guy. He is shredded to bits.
Yeah.
He's a movie star who fights MMA. If he gets his face broken again, he's in a rough old spot. And how much hard sparring has Sage Northcutt done in the past 4 years since he got his face broken? I can tell you for at least 2 years, he didn't receive a jab to the face.
Yeah.
For at least a year after that, he's not having guys potentially ground and pound elbows in his. This is one championship. You can knee a guy on the floor. You can soccer kick a guy, from my understanding.
Yeah.
Well,
I think they changed that, but you can knee him on the floor, definitely.
You can knee him on the floor.
Yeah.
Watch your face, Sage. Just watch your face. But like you said, if this was a guy, just he is some guy, Ahmed Mujtaba,
he's some guy.
I'd be a lot more worried, but like you say, it's the some guy treatment. But yeah, we did an interview with Reese McLaren in a really good space, training with John Wayne Parr. Really wants to get the win in this one to then sort of edge himself right into that title shot. We'll link the interview in the bio, because he's just a nice guy that I would want to see or win a fight. He's just a nice guy who we just want to see just do well, and just like I said, just win a fight. It'd be nice for him. Just I think he deserves it. He's had a tough career. Mm-hmm. He's just, like I say, just a nice guy. Just wanted to win.
Yeah. Just a sweetheart. I know. I agree with you. It's a fun card up and down. It'll be worth watching the entire thing. There's lots that sticks out on it. Anything else this weekend that we need to cover off?
I don't think we've got enough time to go into any detail about Canelo beating John Ryder this weekend. It hasn't happened yet, but Canelo beats John Ryder this weekend in Guadalajara. I would love John Ryder to go over there and beat Canelo. He's going to have to get a knockout just to get a draw in this fight. You know, even if the fight is close, Canelo's walking it 10 rounds to 2. You know, John Ryder has to go in there and he has to. He's going to need multiple knockdowns. He's going to need a knockout. He's going to need. He's not going to win. I like John Ryder a lot. I think he got a tough decision against Callum Smith a couple of years ago, a good few years ago now. I thought he won that one, but got a split decision win over Danny Jacobs. He beat Zach Parker. You know, Zach Parker broke his hand. There's a reason that John Ryder is the opponent for Canelo's Mexican homecoming, and it's because on paper he's a 32-5, riding I think a 5 fight win streak, 4 fight win streak. Yeah, 4 fight win streak. There's a reason that it's John Ryder, and you know he's not maybe rematching a Bivol. I don't want to see him rematch Bivol at all. I think Bivol's just better than him, but there's a reason that it's John Ryder in Mexico and not maybe a tougher fight. But you know, so, I'm expecting to wake up on Saturday morning and look at a Rodtang highlight. I'm expecting to wake up on Sunday morning to see a Canelo highlight. It is what it is, I'm afraid.
We're looking forward to it. It should be a really fun weekend of fights. There's also a Ryzen. There's also a Invicta, I believe. There's a Cage Warriors. Cage Warriors is always good stuff. So lots of good fights upcoming this weekend, sir. Hey, Frazer, appreciate your time. Have a great week, and we'll talk to you soon, eh?
Cheers. Thank you.